I wanted to first of all say good evening and kind of just ask you if you would. I promise I'm not going to preach tonight, but if you would turn to Acts 14, Acts chapter 14. Acts chapter 14. I want to read a couple verses just really by way of introducing what we're about to do tonight. It's such a great privilege that God allows us to be involved in the mission efforts that we're involved in, and that we have so many people that are willing to go to take time out of their schedules to just simply share the gospel and to be the hands and feet of Jesus. So I just want to read and just kind of walk through this real quick. Acts 14, 24 through 28. And this is where Paul and Barnabas are returning to Antioch in Syria. And starting in verse 24, the Bible says, Then they passed through Pisidia and came to Pamphylia, and when they had spoken the word in Perga, they went down to Attalia, and from there they sailed to Antioch, where they had been commended to the grace of God for the work that they had fulfilled. Now, for any of y'all have been on the Navajo trip, this is not just a short skip and a jump across town. It's a long way. I've been there once, and I've talked to people that have been a few times, and we said things start getting goofy about the time you get back close to home, because it's a very long trip. It's not easy, even though it is in the U.S. It's a strenuous trip to make. The journey there and the journey back is certainly not easy. But verse 27 says, And when they arrived and gathered the church together, which is exactly what we're doing right now, they declared all that God had done with them and how He had opened a door of faith to the Gentiles. What we're doing tonight is biblical. We're gathering together to hear not just what the team did, not just what they saw, not just what they heard, but we're here tonight to give glory to God because what He was able to do through them and through the efforts of this church that sends them. And what a great way to be able to do that, to come together tonight and look at how God is going to use them. He said He had opened up a door of faith to the Gentiles. Bel Air is blessed to have an open door to the Navajo Indians in Arizona. We're blessed to continue to be able to go. I know it's a ministry that continues to grow and produce fruit. I know that the time that I was there, when I spoke to somebody, they had heard of Jesus, but it was like, well, I've heard of Him, but I really don't know any more than that. So there's definitely a need for missions in Navajo with the Navajo people. So having said that, I want to pray, and I look forward, and I know we all do, to hearing what God has done through the team in Arizona. So let's pray. Father God, we thank You for the opportunity to take the gospel from beyond these walls, outside of Gulfport, outside of Mississippi, to a people that desperately need the gospel. Father, there is spiritual warfare going on in northeast Arizona. And God, we are thankful that You have been gracious and put it in these people's hearts to go forth and to tell others about saving faith in Jesus. So Father, I pray that You'd be with them tonight. I pray that You would give them boldness. I pray that You would give them great clarity. And Father, I pray above all that You would be glorified in what You see here tonight. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
This was a great trip. We had a great group. We had 13 attend this year. 4 of them were new. We served at a total of 6 sites: cornfields, 2 sites at Chinle, Steamboat, and 2 sites at Clagato. And 2 of those sites were brand new to us. We just distributed well over 400 food boxes, clothes, toys, linens, all kind of things. Y'all know the things that were donated, and they were all put to use out there. Well, our Christmas ministry was done different this year. There were a whole lot of question marks when we went out there. Usually we kind of line them up at the doors of the church and we have them go through to a Bible class, and then they get to get their food items, and they're just kind of in and out, in and out. Well, this year we wanted more focus on building relationships and working with these churches to work with to minister to their own community. So we worked alongside these churches. We helped the church members develop their testimonies. We had discipleship training with them. We also had the Lord's Supper, which we'll talk more about that later. It was amazing. We had people come and pick up items, but we also delivered to homes. It was great getting to have more one-on-one time with these people. You could go into their homes and ask, what can I pray about for you? And they just seemed to love it. On Saturday, we made many deliveries, but there were many that were not at home. One of the ladies that was with us suggested that we went to the chapter house because they were having some kind of event that day. Well, that worked. There were several people that were there. But we also had a young lady that we were not looking for come out. Her name was Penelope Yellowhorse. Penelope was so excited to see us, she wanted to have her picture made with us, which we thought was kind of funny. She's a little princess that had her little crown and everything, so we just thought it was pretty neat that she wanted her picture made with us. But she posted on her Facebook page about how thankful she was for the church group that came all the way from Gulfport, Mississippi, and what a blessing it was to have people that came for the Dene, or the people. Before we went, I had asked specifically for prayer for the weather, because I knew from going out there previously we would not make it going to the home sites if we had a lot of snow, rain, etc. We'd end up with stuck vans. Well, we had awesome weather. While y'all were cold here, we were pretty much warm. We were in the mid-60s, so we were loving it. It was dry. We were able to get there, so the specific prayer request really worked. But now we need to reverse that and start praying. Those people are in desperate need for some rainfall or some snow. I was able to meet with Mark and Penny, our missionaries that are on the field year-round out there this past Saturday. The church at Cornfields that they primarily minister out of is doing great. It's growing. There were 19 from there that went to a retreat a few months ago. These people are also collecting. They are sending donations here to Joseph's house, and also to a ministry in Mexico, which they consider to be very poor. So that's neat that they are ministering to others. But I want to thank you, Bel Air. Thank you for your prayers, support, and encouragement.
As Anita said, we had another awesome trip. We had so many new ones with us, and one thing, y'all think David McKenzie's a quiet guy sitting back there in that back row? That man loves to talk, and he bonded with the Navajo people. And he kept us in line too. Nancy Brooks and I got to do one thing I'd never done before. We had two births that went to Clackato. And I knew where Clackato was, but I'd never worked Clackato. And I got to meet some people that I knew from Naslini, where we don't go anymore. And I loaded one of my friends down with a lot of baby clothes because she's getting ready to have number 12. She was so thankful to get whatever. But David officiated at the Lord's Supper one morning, and Nancy and I had the honor of serving. Well, we found a tray for the juice, but they don't have the equipment that we do here. Keith had run to the store and got little paper cups, and we had the juice, but we had nothing to put the bread on. So I thought Nancy went next door to get a plate. She comes back with a little black disc like this. Yes, there it is. A coffee can lid. This is what we served our bread on. But they didn't care. You know, we heard that it was a very reverent service, and the Navajo were very appreciative, and David did a wonderful job. But to top it all off, they sang Amazing Grace in Navajo. And if you think that doesn't bring tears to your eyes, you don't have a heart. I mean, it was just amazing. I do want the parents of Stephanie and Mark and David and Delana, and was Tish. Y'all have awesome young people. You should be very proud of them. I heard more than one time Tish Cameron getting compliments, and also all the Moore children and Elena. They led the music. They didn't back up from anything. They either led the music, they unloaded trucks. Even Andrew, my buddy over there, unloaded trucks. And they didn't have a problem going out and ministering to people when they were delivering the food. They took turns praying with them. What can we pray for with you? And they did not back up on anything. We have awesome young people. This is the second year I've worked with the Moore family, and I got to know Elena this year. And but it was just awesome to see them doing all the heavy stuff and let those old people sit back. But Nancy and I really loved serving the Lord's Supper, and she has some other things she wants to show you. But this was a very eye-opening experience this time. I absolutely loved it, and I'm going to go as long as the Lord lets me. And I do hope David brings up the lesson he taught all of us the first day we were out at the gas station, remember? I hope he brings that up, because it was eye-opening, not just to the young people, but to all of us. Thank you for letting us go. Oh, is Pam and Joe ever here? They sent a huge thing of candy with us.
They're in Awana. They're probably
And,
Awana.
Oh, okay. But they sent a lot of candy with us, and I told Cameron I wasn't going to tell his grandma how many Pop-Tarts he ate. Not Pop-Tarts. Look, what do you call those things? Tootsie Roll Pops. They ran out and had me go and buy a little first. Thank you, sir.
You know, I know we're here for Navajo, but I'd like to step to the side for just a minute and say something else. Does anybody know, or let me say, there's something that is in 50,000 churches in 120 countries. And I know that some of y'all out there know a lot about it, and some of you don't know very much about it, and that's Awana. And of course, we have it over there, and I don't know if y'all know that it's the kids come and they learn verses, and they learn not just verses but other things, and they write, and it's a whole curriculum for for a youth program, for a children's program, and it's in 120 countries, and it's in 50,000 clubs. And I just wanted to make mention that in 1949, I believe it was, in Chicago, that a preacher in Chicago hired a youth minister, and together they got together and they made this program. And if you dealt with it very much, you know it's very specific. It has 4 colors that go along with the club. It's got all kinds of stuff. But I wanted to say that also Anita and I and some of the rest of you have been over to the Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola, and where they bring the kids in to see their fathers and grandfathers, and that's also a ministry of Awana out of Chicago. I'm saying all that to say that a few days ago, the co-founder of Awana in 1949 went to his reward. I'm sure that he wasn't sad about leaving this life. He was about 4 months shy of 100 years old. And he still went into the office up until just the last little bit, maybe a year, a few months. And he still went into the office a day or two. Anita, and I'm not sure if anybody else, maybe Susan, but anyway, when we went to Chicago a couple of times to go through this program to learn about Awana, we were able to meet him. And, you know, I have to say that I may have met somebody as sweet and somebody who loved the Lord as much, but I've never met anybody that loved the Lord more than Art Royhan and loved children. He just couldn't wait. I saw him over there at the prison sometimes. He was way up in his 90s. It was hot. And he was there. And he was talking. And he was talking to the kids individually. And as a group, he loved people. And he loved the Lord. And he loved to tell people about the Lord. So I just wanted to mention him. That's just That's just an aside from the Navajo, but I wanted everybody to know that, he's like the Billy Graham of youth or some of the kids. Anyway, Nancy stole my thunder with the lid, but it was kind of funny. David was going to do the communion, and, this place is not well equipped. Some of these places, as a matter of fact, don't tell anybody, but some of the bathrooms are outside. So I just wanted to, but anyway, so when they had little cups and they had the juice and they had the saltine crackers and the two Nancys, which is, don't tell a Baptist church that two women serve communion, but that was what we had. We dealt with what we had. And anyway, and David just, it brings tears to my eyes when I think about the message that he brought and the spirit that was in that little church that day. And Nancy Brooks came out here and said, we don't have anything to serve the communion in. And I'm like, okay, here's David's hat, and here's, and here's this. So, so I chose this. David was real appreciative of that. But anyway, it was really funny. But I'm telling you that I've never had a sweeter communion than that one that we had that day. I won't ever forget it. Won't ever forget it. Like Anita said, we had a different emphasis this time. We worked more with the people. And it was very interesting because I didn't realize that, like she said, they lined up and we took their names and we run them through this whole thing and gave them their food and gave them the Lord, and a message. But I forgot that we didn't listen. And I didn't even realize it till this time. And, to sit down with these people, like Anita said, we had a little sheet of paper that would teach them how to write their testimony. And that being the beginning of being able to tell somebody what Jesus has done for you and what the Lord, can do for them. And, but I didn't realize that as we sat there in little groups, teaching them or trying to tell them how to write their testimonies and everything. And most of these people that were there that day were Christians. And they started talking. And I thought, maybe we talk too much. I'm talking about myself. Maybe we talk too much and don't listen enough. And somebody said we have 2 ears and 1 mouth and we should be listening twice as much as we're talking. But anyway, it was very interesting to listen to these people and some of their background. And I was talking with some ladies that were from Denver, and they were sisters. And I don't know the whole story, and I haven't quite gotten to the bottom of it and researched it and everything. But I knew that way back, I saw in the John Wayne movies how we came in and we took the Indians and we did this and we killed them and we put them up on the reservations and everything. But that was a long time ago, right? That was a long time ago. That was when we first came to this country. And I met 3 ladies who lived in Denver, but their brother still lived on the reservation, and they came to see. And they were telling me a story about how they were, their words, snatched away from their parents and sent to a boarding school. Now, I knew that happened way back in the first of the century, or the 1900s, the World War and all that. But I didn't know, this lady wasn't that old. This lady was, this must have been in the 60s and the 70s. And she was telling me how some of this stuff is still going on, how they came and they took 4 of the girls and 2 of the boys, and they sent them to a boarding school, and they, they chop off their hair so they don't look like Indians, and they try to teach them a different language. And I'm like, I thought that was a long time ago, but apparently it's not. And she told me that because, and she said that her one sister got old enough to leave this boarding school and came back and got the other 3 and rescued them, as she called it, took them to Denver and, was able to, they were able to live a freer life. But she was telling me that, she told me this because she said the white people come, and she said, you have to understand where some of us are coming from. She said, when we were in the boarding school, she said, the Baptists came, and they taught us all this, and all in good, you know, they were trying to do good. The Baptists came and they said, and the Baptists came back and they said, okay, we have 130 converts and we, you know, lots of numbers. They all got baptized. And she said, and then the Mormons came. And the Mormons told them all about Jesus, you know, all about their religion and everything. And they went back and said, oh, we got 200 people convert. And she said, this went on and on and on. She said, it was the Baptists and the Mormons and the Catholic and the Presbyterian. She said, they all wanted to come and help the poor little Indian kids find their way. And she said, and what happened was, it ended up confusing a whole generation of people as to exactly where the truth was and exactly why are you here telling me this. In other words, is it just numbers and everything? She said, so when you minister to some of the Indians, said, I want you to be aware that not only is it just the white man's religion, said it's more than that. It's that white, you know, that they have been traumatized by being told all these different things and everything. So I've been pondering that ever since I got back, and I want to research it some more and everything. But I'm thinking this gives me a whole new perspective on how to maybe talk to them and maybe understand their hearts more. Anyway, I've been rambling on. Like she said, we had 13 people, 4 new ones. I was so excited. And we go every June and every December. We have VBS in June, and we have this winter trip in December. Anybody's welcome. There's a job for everyone, and you'll get a cool t-shirt.
I was one of the newer ones that went, and I'm just going off the top of my head because I didn't feel like writing anything down. So, when we first went there, it was a long, long trip, and that part I really didn't enjoy, but it was part of the process of getting there. And we got there, we got to the hotel. I think it was around 11 when we got there. So we all decided to go to bed, and when we woke up the next morning, I realized that I didn't wake up to anybody waking me up. We kind of woke up to Mr. Davis breathing because he was getting everything working around the house, or around the hotel, because it's such a high altitude, and you kind of realized it's hard to breathe up there. So that's how I normally woke up, was when he came and sat down by the bed. Well, we got out on the church the first day, and we had to unload the trucks. Well, me and a few of the other guys from other churches went to help a lady move out of her house because she got fired from her job at the school as a teacher. And you would think that they would have a little bit more neater houses. But it's kind of hard when you're like living alone and you kind of feel like nobody's there, so like no one cares what the appearance of the house looks like. But some of the houses aren't really that neat. So we had to help her move out, and it was difficult trying to get in the house and out of the house with furniture. So we did that, and by the time we got back to the church, they already unloaded the truck, so we just had to help reload everything. So we got everything packed up to go to the different sites, and we kind of made a little game out of unloading the potato truck. And it was hard work, but it was also fun. We would have 4 people in the truck throwing us down bags, and the people that were on the ground in front of the truck would be throwing the bags, and we just throw them over our head and pray someone behind us caught it, because those were like 10-pound potato sacks being thrown over the head, not paying attention where we were throwing them. So we got all that done, and we go back to the hotel after we got everything loaded up. We went back to the hotel, came back the next day, and that's when we did the testimonies. And you don't realize how much your testimony compares to theirs. Like, there's a whole lot of similarity to your testimony and their testimony. And when you tell them, or when they're sitting there and they're confused on how to write their testimony, on what to say, and you tell them, oh yeah, I've been through that too, I can help you, it makes it a whole lot easier on them, because it makes them feel like they can relate to you and that they can tell you how their life went, how God has changed them from when they wanted to do stuff on their own, and how they wanted to be free and go out and party and do things their own way, and how God had so many chances to take their lives from them. And it's weird how your story relates to their story, and it helps them, like, it kind of brings them and makes them feel like they're loved, because you went through the same thing they had on a certain level, and it just makes it easier for them to talk to you and open up to you. So we got done with testimonies, and then I met Heather, which was Pastor Greg's niece, and she went through everything I had, and I think ate all my candy too. that was really really great. It was like, I'm hungry, I have something, and then next thing I know, I have nothing. So we went and delivered food, and we kind of had a contest with other groups to see who could deliver the most food. And our team won. And the first day Heather and I met, we fought over the front seat. And Pastor Greg already said that I was the oldest in the band, so I got to get the front seat. And Heather refused to let that happen. She would come back to the van early, get in the front seat. I'd end up going out to the van, getting her out of the front seat. She'd end up walking the van as I'm getting her out, slammed the door, but therefore I had to climb in the front window. And she got hit in the process on accident. She was pulling my foot down, and I was resisting against her. Then she let go and snipped me. Then she decided that it was only fair that she was able to hit me back. So we sat there and we taught her how to hit, which was bad on my part, because then later on, the next day, she wanted to hit me more. So, second day, we went out, and we went out, and we went out to the more serious houses where it was more of the rundown parts. Because the first day we were in the subdivisions, and it makes you really think and be thankful for what you have, because the majority of their houses that they lived in, you could literally go up with your foot and just barely kick at the thing, the whole thing would fall, collapse. And all they had there was a fire stove or a wood stove to keep the warmth and cook on, and a couch to sleep on. And it makes you really thankful, because you think, oh, I have such a rough life here, and then you go there and it almost puts you in tears because of what they have to go through. And we come to this church and sit in this church and have a great old happy time with the rest of our Southern friends and everything. And they're over here in literally sheds having service where sometimes not even the stove warms the whole entire church, and you don't think of anything of it, because really this is all you've ever known is to grow up in a nice church. And it kind of, we had a guy named Mr. Shane, and we were kind of morning meeting everyone, and he came up and he was telling several stories. so I thought maybe I could tell several stories. And he started crying, and really, like, tears started flowing. I started choking up because of him, and he was like, I wish there was something that we could do to help do construction around here. And I've talked to Mr. Tony about it, and we have to get more plans figured out. And I wanted to try to get a group to go and build for the churches, because we have these nice things, and they're living over there. They deserve at least a sturdy shed to have a church in and to learn the word of the Lord, so that we can at least plant a seed in the church, and that they can go out and spread it to the rest of the people. And it was also really fun being able to interact with the younger kids, because normally when we first went and we were just walking past the kids kind of like laughed at us. I don't know why, but laughed at me because I wanted to come up and interact with them and play basketball, play football with them. And it's like, really? You can play basketball? You can play football? No, I can't play basketball, but I can throw a football. And it's kind of weird because I got out and they threw me the football, and they were surprised I caught it. They laughed, actually. And they were like sat back with their arms crossed waiting for me to throw it. And I'm like, I can throw the football. You just got to catch it. And I threw it, they caught it, and then they just continued laughing. And I couldn't figure out why they were laughing at me. And I got back in the van, and Mr. Greg was like, how was it? I'm like, pretty fun. Besides them laughing at me. And he's like, it's just because my skin color didn't think I could really play, because they've never had a white person. He said, this is what he said. He's like, they've never really had white people interact with them during sports. He's like, some of them don't go to school, so they don't get to be on like a football team or anything, so they don't get to interact with any of the other schools. And that was really fun, interacting with the people, face to face, learning what you can do for them. And there's one lady named Miss Kim. I promised her we'd come back, and she's like, you're always welcome to come over to my house and stay as long as you want. And I'm really looking forward to going back next year, because that was very fun and great how we could go around and learn about them.
More to you. Oh wait, and let me tell you the story about Mr. Mark making me get out in 14 degrees weather in shorts.
Those of you who don't know, 3 members of my family are not here tonight. They're on the way to Tennessee to visit with Stephanie's dad, who's recovering from open heart surgery. He's doing fine. He's about 5 or 6 weeks out. But anyway, so I'm going to try to encapsulate some of their experiences here tonight also, because we were all together, or at least 5 of my family was. Logan was actually in a different church, had some different experiences. We sat down to work with this group of Navajo people to help them develop their testimonies. And when you develop your testimony, you get real, and you get real fast. If I were to stand up in front of you tonight and say some funny things, like I actually opened my testimony kind of with the idea, if I grew up on a farm. And you know you're a farm boy, and a true farm boy, when you can talk about from first-hand experience stepping in a cow paddy barefoot. They can relate to that. And yet when you talk about struggling in your walk, when you talk about wanting to be in control of yourself and not letting God be in control, they can relate to that. And when you open up a conversation with them along those lines, and they realize you're ready to listen, they're about to lay it on you. You're going to hear stories of addiction. You're going to hear stories of drugs and alcohol, broken homes, broken families, loved ones who've moved away. because there's no opportunities locally. The young people, you hear Mississippians about a brain drain. They have it much worse than we do. Unemployment easily 40%. It's tough where they live. So as we split up into a couple of different bands from the church that we were at to go in 3 different directions, Cameron went one way, so to speak. I can't speak for his experiences, but we all had something different. So we'll kind of encapsulate our day, and this will kind of encapsulate all of my family's experiences. First home we went to was the home of Grandma. And everybody has a grandma in the community, right? Well, they're no different. We're going to Grandma's house. We went to Grandma's house. Wonderful, wonderful 88-year-old lady. Just as pleasant and as happy to see us as anybody could possibly imagine. And as we visited with her, she told us her story of her family, how they raised horses and cattle and sheep, and she loved horses. So we prayed with her. They're experiencing a drought, and they need water and snow. Snow, wintertime tends to be when they get a lot of their water. Shared about their hardships as we prayed. We kind of began to wrap up. And she shared with us that she finally had to give up riding horses a few years back. And so someone in our group spoke up and said, well, exactly when did you give up riding horses? She said 2 years ago at 86. So any of you who think you can't, you can. The next home we went to was a lady who had moved back to be with her family. She had lost her husband and her daughter in an extremely short period of time, about 4 to 6 months, if my memory serves me correct. She had moved back to be with the rest of her family, and Cameron's statement if she lived in a home you could knock over with your boot would be an absolutely true statement. Windows were covered with curtains, doorway was a blanket draped over it, and it was 18 degrees at night most nights. But she was simply the most joyous lady I could possibly imagine meeting. She was a believer. She knew who God was, and I think she was more thankful that we were there and more excited to see us and pray with us than we were to pray with her. No matter her circumstances, she shared with us joy. And that was something that we could easily walk away from that going, I think we received the blessing. Well, the other homes we went to, I had been part of kind of the group that kind of set up the teams and who would go where and why. So I had a little bit of background story. So we were with a Navajo lady who told us, we're going to a home. This lady has a husband who's Muslim. Okay, a bit different, Muslim out here on the Navajo reservation. Yeah, and he's a branch of the Muslims here on the Navajo reservation. So, you know, he's a nice enough guy, but we really don't know what to expect. Okay, well that was all the rest of the group knew. What I knew was that he was a member of the Muslim group that the idea of killing all the Americans was a good idea. I'm a little nervous about this. I kid you not, but I'm the only one in the band who knows about it, so I'm just kind of, okay, well, let's see how this goes. So we pull up to the home. It's a house trailer. I knock on the door. Our guide knows the wife. The wife turns out she was very sick. She was experiencing flu, as many of us have experienced. She had their children there, so we really weren't able to visit with her. Her husband was not home, but we were able to leave some food there and visit. Her mom lives literally 40 feet away in another little hut, so we kind of loop around. The van, literally I drive about 40 feet and put it in park, and everybody gets out. Mom comes out, wonderful, wonderful, sweet lady. We asked her if we could pray with her, and she says, yeah, well, what can we pray for you about? You know, pray for the year. The family's experiencing many of the things I mentioned earlier, and you know, we need God to intervene in those situations because we have broken homes and we have marriages struggling and we have all of those things, and so we began to pray. Now, quick aside, you're not a Navajo unless you have a minimum of 3 dogs at your home, and that's the minimum. Quite often it's 10 to 20. In the middle of this prayer, as I'm praying, there's a dog fight. And I don't mean right over there. I mean right in the circle where we're praying. Stephanie is literally about to get knocked over. Andrew, I thought, was about to head for the van. But you knew in that crazy moment, and that's the only one I know to describe it, as we're standing here trying to pray with a lady, the devil is alive and real. He will do anything he can to advance his cause and slow down the cause of Christ. And that was really, really, really apparent in that moment. There would be experience after experience that I could share as I stand here that would probably leave your mouths open and your eyes wide with a shot. But that's not the point. The point is you to understand that there's a people out there that they need the love of Christ, just like there's people around the corner here. And hopefully, as part of Navajo missions and the many churches who are represented from about 4 states, we had the opportunity to impact those church members and train them to do their testimony. And we went out with Navajo church members so that now they can go out on their own and do those same things and speak to the Navajo people as Navajo people, not white man speaking to Navajo people. And hopefully that will go further, and hopefully that will begin to impact the Navajo nation. And that is our prayer. I'll leave you very much as Ben mentioned tonight. I know many of you look at these awesome t-shirts that we have on and you think, I won't be one of those. Sign up.
I was at the Chinle site. It was apparently one of the biggest sites, and it was really cool. And Mr. Mark was leading there. And the second day that we were there, we mostly stayed at the site. A few of us went out and went to people's homes, but I stayed at the site. But the first day that we went out, I actually got to go out and on the deliveries and talk to people and see their homes and everything. And it was really an amazing experience because we got to really talk to them and listen to them. And Miss Betty talked about this, and this was something that was really on my heart because a lot of people, you could tell it wasn't just that they needed food, and they did, and it wasn't just that they needed, like some of them were, you could tell they were in Christ, they knew Christ, and some you could tell did not, but all of them needed to talk to someone. They needed someone to listen to them. And there was one lady that really, it just got my attention, the way she was talking, because they told us as we were going up, they were like, well, we know this lady and she just lost her son recently. And when we saw her, you could tell she was just so tired and she was just so sad. And it was like, I wish we could stay like for a long time and really talk to her, because you could tell she didn't just she knew we were coming to give her food. And she knew we were from a church, and you could also tell that she knew some things, like there had been churches there before. So she knew kind of what lines to say, and that was all. And she knew what to tell us, what we wanted to hear. But it was like, if we could just talk to her, if we had like a few days for each house, that would be fantastic. But we don't, but it was amazing to just be able to talk to people and really get to know them as much as we could while we were there. And really listen to them. Of course, sometimes when you listen, they're speaking in English, and then in the middle of the sentence, they're speaking in Navajo. And that's always fun. And it was amazing, and I love listening to their language. And the first time I heard it, I was like, it's so amazing, it makes me want to cry. It's just so beautiful because, and like, they talked about how they would sing, and I didn't get to hear that in Navajo, but I did hear them speak, and it was amazing. Because they would, if there was 2 people speaking who knew Navajo and English, they would speak in Navajo for a little while, and then in the middle they would say a word in English, like family members or church. And then they would speak in Navajo a little while, and then the person might answer in English. And that was really cool. And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying, but it's awesome. But what I did learn, and what was one of my favorite parts, thing I got to learn, it was when we were on the way to one of the delivery sites, someone on our team asked, so, you know, we're working at the site, Chinle, what does Chinle mean in Navajo? And the lady who was with us, and she was the one who was with us in the van, giving us directions, telling us all the places to go. By the way, there's no like road signs or anything. You don't just go and say, go on this road. You just kind of go take this turn and then go right and go a couple miles, and then maybe you'll find the house, hopefully. But we did find, I think, all of them, I think. We did, not everyone was home. But on the way there, we were talking, and we were like, so what does Chinle mean? And Miss Charlene, the lady who was, the Navajo lady who was with us, was like, well, Chinle means water coming out, or water from the valley. And I'm thinking, like, well, Exodus, like the rock coming out of the water, like, I mean, Moses with the water and everything. And I'm like, that's really cool. I didn't know that. And then a few minutes later, we're like, so what does Klagetoh mean? And she's like, well, that's water from below. And I'm like, well, that's neat. And the linguist in me, I'm already looking for word pictures and stuff, and I'm like, that's awesome. And then a few minutes later, we see on the side of the building written in Navajo, I think it was To'ina, and we're like, so what does that mean? Miss Charlene, what's To'ina? And she's like, where did you see that? And we're like, well, we just saw it written on the side of a building, like graffiti and everything. She's like, oh, well, that means water is life. And I'm like, that's awesome. And I just take a step back from it because I'm like, that's amazing. And you don't even have to look for a word picture here because I'm like, that's just what we came for. And like, not even just what we came for in this trip, I'm like reminding myself this is what our lives should be. Water is life. That we came to tell these people about the living water and live our lives as a picture of that. And I was like, that's amazing. I love this. And it was awesome. And then a while later I thought about it and I was like, they're in a drought. They don't have a lot of water right now. And it's not like they have water. I mean, they just got a little bit of snow, but that didn't do very much. So they're in a drought, but they're still saying like, and we saw it written once we knew to look for it. We would see To'ina written all over buildings, all over when we knew to look. And we would see also in English, water is life. And I'm like, they're writing it everywhere and they know it. And I'm like, that's how I should be. That's how we should be. Even when we can't see him, that we still know that he is life. We don't have evidence of it right now, but we know that he's there and he's with us. And I thought that was awesome. I had a lot of fun. It was awesome. It was great to go like just talk to people and meet people. And if you're thinking about going and if you feel God like leading you to go, I encourage you to go. It's amazing. Thank you.
Alright, so I was at the Klagetoh First Baptist Church, and we passed out clothes, and we did the food, and we went to people's houses just like everybody else did. But I wasn't as much involved with that as our revival service that we had both nights while we were there. We only were at this church for 2 nights. The other day we were doing unloading the truck, or the trucks, plural. We have a lot of buses that undo. But so we did those revival services, and then that we had a Lord's Supper, and I was involved in that, and we did some music before the Lord's Supper, and I was able to sing and just lead them. They didn't happen to have a piano, but they actually had a set of acoustic drums. It was a pretty nice set, and an electric guitar. So I guess there was somebody there who knew how to play the drums and the guitar. So I don't know, nobody played it while we were there. A couple of the people were sick. The pastor Xander, had the flu at the time, so he really didn't participate much. He actually fell asleep. He sat up on the stage and fell asleep, and we all... Mr. Keith is the leader of all of Navajo Missions, and he's over here talking. Here's the pastor sitting in his fold-out chair, asleep. We're going, is he asleep? Or is he at his hospital? And eventually we decided he was asleep. But that was understandable because he had the flu at the time, so we could kind of give him some leniency there. The second night, we did a little more music. I led in 2 songs. We did a couple of hymns beforehand that most of the Navajo seemed to know. And at the end, we did Jesus Paid It All. And in the way it worked out was most of our group was at Chinle. The other half of our group was at the other Klagetoh. And I guess they didn't think I needed to be with anybody from our group. So they sent me all by myself to the one Klagetoh. And I couldn't figure out why they would do that. And I was like, well, maybe it's because I was in Brazil at the time and I just turned my paper in a little late. But I've come to realize that it was probably something that God did. Because if I hadn't been there, nobody would have been there to lead the music, and they probably wouldn't have had that for the revival. Also, I've been asked to start off this story. So we were at the gas station, we were going on the way. And my mom goes around one of our vans to get the food, and I think somebody was over there, but they happened to just walk off, and this guy comes from out of nowhere, and he's like, hey, do you want to buy these sand dollars next? And I happened to come around the van at that time, and I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of weird. It's just this guy's son. So I went around, and I went and got Mr. David, and that's where I'm going to leave off, because he's going to tell you the rest of the story. And the lesson we learned from the gas station, which I think Miss Benny mentioned a little while ago.
I'm a show and tell person. I brought my goodies with me. Well, first of all, I'm just so blessed, to be in good health so that I could make that 14-hour day van ride out there and 2 days back and then work as hard as we did while we were there. But it was such a blessing to be able to go, and I want to thank each one of you that had a part in helping us to go. I've had a lot of people ask me, so exactly what did you all do? And I said, well, the first day we unloaded 3 huge U-Haul trucks full of clothing and toys for the kids and an 18-wheeler full of food. And we had an assembly line lined up, and we just tossed 20-pound bags of flour and potatoes, onions, and cases of flour, of beans and rice and oil and the staples that they need to make their bread, and food, potatoes that would get them through. And then we had sorted into the 6 sections of the different locations that we went to and put it back on the U-Haul trucks. And the U-Haul trucks hauled it to the 6 sites where we unloaded it again into the churches or the buildings that we were working in. And then we had to sort it again. Our associate pastor at the church that we were working in had to come up with 75 families, needy families in her congregation, her neighborhood, that were on the list to receive the items. So we had to sort it all into those 75 groups again, and then load it again and take it out to the families. But it was such a wonderful blessing to be able to do that, and to see the reception that we received while we were there from each family. One family that we went to that some of the gals had known before, they had 6 daughters, I believe it was, and the dad had cancer. And they were just so happy, so thrilled that we would care enough to bring them needy items. And there again, I just want to say that the young people, I never heard them say, I want a McDonald's. They just worked hard every minute. They didn't grumble. They didn't, not a slack off on nothing. I didn't hear them say, I want to go sit down, I'm tired. Just work. So, thank you all for being an inspiration to me. And the second morning, we had the communion service. And it was a really wonderful, special time that I won't ever forget either. David did a wonderful job ministering, and then Nancy and I served the communion. But if our deacons in the church here, every time we have communion, if it means as much to you all as it did to us that morning, then you have a tremendous blessing every time we take communion. It touches the heart, it touches the soul. And every time you take it from now on, pay special attention, pay more attention to it, make it a reverent thing that you do, that you're not just taking God, the Lord's body and blood frivolously. It's a blessing to be able to take part in that. And I'm not sure, I'm not going to serve you communion tonight, but one this week, now the old ladies came over to the building we were working in and made us their staple, their bread, I guess. It's called fry bread. I had never heard of it. And, but anyway, I watched them make it, so I made y'all some. So maybe Cameron, or one of you guys will come and pass it around. It kind of looks like a big old piece of bread. So, oops. Y'all can serve that around. It's pretty good. If you put salt on it, it tastes like a pretzel, put cinnamon sugar on it, it tastes like sweet roll. You can eat it with chili, whatever. But it's pretty good. And also I bought a little piece of a juniper tree. I don't know if you've all been around or smelled or been toward anywhere there's a juniper tree. Had never been out west that way, and sagebrush and juniper trees is about all I saw. And this is the strongest smelling thing. It's been in this plastic bag for 2 weeks, and you still can hardly get anywhere near it. But it has little blue berries on it. And the Navajo ladies take those little blue berries and peel off the blue part of it, and inside's a little stone, a little seed, but it's like almost like a stone that they make jewelry out of. And they were so gracious to give a couple of the ladies necklaces that they had made out of the berries from the juniper tree. And Elijah, in the Bible, lay down by the juniper tree, and an angel appeared unto him. And he looked over, and there was a cake baking on the coals, and there was water supplied for him. I don't know if it was his flatbread or not, but God provided bread and water for him.
Feel comfortable? How many minutes I got? I've been in touch with the Navajo Nation since we got back. I can't wait to go back. I'm excited. I'm pretty sure that I went to see if there was any way the Lord could use me in a way that He never did before. And I prayed that. And that was my prayer. The first time we had a meeting over at the fellowship hall, my prayer was, Lord, I just want you to bring me alongside some men folk, because I know that's the culture, for me to speak to men folk about how men are supposed to lead the community and be the leaders in that community. So I was praying that prayer, even to the leadership that said, look for a man that I could come along beside. And after the team has already gone back home, for me to just show up. And what'd you bring us? All I brought was encouragement. All I brought was the truth about that you still have this battle. And the Lord brought me to that place where I met those men. And I'm pretty sure that He had ordained for me to meet. And I'm excited to come and tell you about those guys. Because while those teams were working so hard, lifting that bale, toting that stone, I was doing this. And I was listening. And I was sharing. And I was making those relationships. And they were surprised that this guy didn't have nothing else to do but just to listen to my stories. And to tell me about the last shoe game. You know what that last shoe game is? I didn't know anything about the Navajo. So I asked before, I said, what are the faux pas? What are those mistakes that we make in the culture? That we need to be sure we don't make those mistakes. So the first day, while they're all packing 7 20-pound bags of flour at one time, Cameron, I saw you. 20 pounds, 7 times. That's a lot of weight. One at a time, and potatoes everywhere. And I'm doing crowd control. I'm out at the front gate, directing folks to, no, we're not distributing from this place today. They're bringing all this to your homes later in the week. If you're on the list, if you're a member of the church, we have limited supplies. And we've come to minister to the members of the church and to those that the church members have pointed out that are in very dire need. People were angry and upset and turning and leaving. And I was crowd control. And the missionary didn't really have time to do that. And he didn't have anybody designed to do it, but I'd work all I could, then I'd go do crowd control because that was a lot lighter on my back. They said, he's doing nothing. While I was doing nothing, the Lord sent one of those preachers, been there 50 years, a white man. He'd been in the Navajo Nation for 50 years. So I asked him, what are those faux pas? What are those mistakes, cultural mistakes, that we ought not to? He said, you've already made them. And what he meant to say was the white man has already made them, has been making them, is keeps on making them. The same mistakes over and over and over again. And I thought today when I was on the phone yeah, that happened during our Lord's Supper, I might mention too. The wood stove was there, and we were right in the middle of what I was supposed to be doing, and I was right in the throes of telling them just what this meant and how they dabbed the blood of the lamb on the top and on the sides, and you know how you shouldn't and then here they come with a load of wood in and open the gate and start throwing firewood. They said you didn't miss a lick, you just got louder. That's usually the way that works. So, you know this film Finding Nemo? They dubbed that into Navajo, and I thought that was cute. But I met the guy that did the voice of the puffer fish while I was there. And it's a big deal. It's a proud people. It's a proud heritage, a proud culture to be pure Navajo. That's a big deal, you know. But then some folks that are not pure Navajo said, oh, I'm half white. And almost like he's disappointed he's not pure Navajo. You know, but he's the pufferfish voice. Thinking, cool, I get to meet you too. And after it's all over, we finish talking, he comes back where I'm at. Coming out of one of those little outhouses that are outside. And we meet there, and he wants to share with me, almost like a Catholic priest would take confession. He was telling me all the deepest, darkest things that was going on in his world. He said, you know, I got one foot in the dark, and I got one foot in the light. Oh, wow, that'll preach. I'm half white, I'm half Navajo. I said, dude, you're the bridge. You're what this nation needs. You're exactly what they need to be that bridge to show them the way to the true light. He says, I touch a lot of dead people. I thought maybe he worked in a mortuary or some kind of a thing. I didn't know. But the dead people he was talking about, he said young people. People that I know that had died from lack of employment, that they get to depression, and they turn to the alcohol, or whatever else they can find to induce them until they get liver failure, and they die at a young age. And then he has to prep the bodies. They're taking the buttons off the coats, off the clothing, smashing the buttons, smashing the jewelry, and rendering the saddle useless so it won't ride anymore, and killing the horse, and whatever, and throwing it all. They're going through the motions of rendering this useless in this life so to be ready to go in the afterlife, and that's just one foot in the darkness. And they're going through the motions as young people. They don't even know the cultures. They don't even know the ceremonies that are going on. There's Christian folks that are 3 generations of Christians on the Navajo Nation that don't even know those rituals and those ceremonies. But I met some folks that were pure Navajo. They're going to be Navajo till they die. The Navajo way and Navajo culture is contrary to the gospel. There's no way you can be pure Navajo and stay Navajo and be a Christian. That's just an oxymoron. There's no Christian Navajo. You've got to come out of the Navajo culture to be a Christian. You can't stay steeped in that because you got the medicine man. And you got all these ceremonies, these coming of age ceremonies, and all these different situations. And the cutting of the hair. In their culture, the hair is an extension of the brain, their wisdom. And what you're doing, as soon as you could grab a handful of it for those young men, you were cutting it off, taking away their wisdom. I said, we're still doing that. That's still going on. They're not even teaching in the Navajo tongue anymore. They're distant. The pure Navajo guy, the reason we were sitting the way we were, because those guys remember that the women sat here, and the men sat over here, and that's where the men were all sitting. And when we got ready to do the testimonies, all the men are sitting here as according to culture. I thought, this is easy. I just go talk to these guys because they're all over here in one place. And pure Navajo were disgusted that there was still co-mingling. We go into the chapter house, and the men's supposed to be on the south and the women on the north, or whichever. And they're mixed. They're sitting next to each other. And they're just diluting our culture down. And as an evangelist, I'm thinking, praise God. That needs to go away. Because those ways of dancing through the sun and dancing through the night, and I'm thinking, we need to know what these cultures are. We need to know what these ceremonies are about. So I got myself invited to one. They said, sure, you can go with us tonight. We'll meet at 11. We'll start at midnight. We'll go all night long. You'll be working tomorrow. But I probably couldn't go with that much sleep. So I couldn't make that trip. But when I hear, I thought, I'm grasping for straws. What can I tell this fellow about my Christ? It's going to make a difference in his life, as he's telling me. He's Navajo. His ponytail is this big around, all down his back. A gorgeous specimen of a warrior. Hunter-gatherers. There's nothing to hunt. Nothing to gather. Proud people that have to have their hand out because there's no other way to make it in their culture. The government has to take care of them. There's unemployment until they turn alcoholics, until they die of cirrhosis, or they kill themselves. That was that young man's other thing. All of these young people get to depression and they don't die of cirrhosis, but they can't stand it anymore, and they get just enough medication on board to get them feeling good enough to commit this suicide thing. He's handling a lot of dead people. What a testimony. I called him this afternoon just to say, hey, we're going to speak tonight. You got a word from the Navajo Nation. He said, our livestock needs water. Our people need jobs. I had another call earlier in the week. Dennis called me. He was a gentleman I met later. He's one of those third-generation evangelist types. And as a young man, he moved around with a tent. And all across the nation, they would just gather the tent and move. And he heard a lot of the word. And I thought, Dennis, what kind of a word do you have from the Navajo Nation? You're going to speak Sunday night, and I want to have a chance to, give them a word. But he had called me earlier, and I was at work, and I had to call him back. And this time I called him when I was off, Friday afternoon. Well, he was working. He was watering the horses. He's in the middle of what he's doing. And he said, yeah, I got a word. He talked about the faith of a mustard seed. Oh, what a sweet word, right? Look at that. And then where he went with that, it ripped me way down inside. Jesus is telling parables, and he said he presented another parable to them. This is in Matthew chapter 13. He said, he presented another parable to them, saying, kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field. And this is the smallest of all other seeds, but when it is full grown, it is larger than the garden plants, and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and nest in its branches. And he was reminding me about the birds of the air coming to nest in this. And I'm thinking, he's talking about faith right there. And then he went further, and he's talking about when they couldn't remove the demons from the demoniac. Jesus said to them, because of the littleness of your faith, for truly I say to you, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible to you. What did he say? He said, you don't have the faith of a mustard seed. And Dennis Yazi's message to me was convoluted. little. I thought, that's kind of not as happy and jolly as I thought. Did he even know what he was really saying? And he said something that weirded me out. He's talking about a sprig, a twig planted on a mountain that grew into a great and mighty tree right out of Ezekiel. And I think he's confused. He's got his text. But if you look at the cross references, it's in there. That sprig planted on a mountaintop that grows into this vast tree with the limbs spread out and birds of the air make nest in them. You know, and I'm thinking, as a little boy, I'm thinking that's just a beautiful little tree. You know, it's a great tree and birds nesting in it. And what a beautiful thing. And animals are having their young under the tree. And, you know, and thinking the Navajo Nation is sending me a message. And I thought it was just this beautiful little cuddly. But the rest of that Ezekiel says that that tree falls and the birds are making the nest in the parts and pieces that are left of it. That's what we have going on right now in the Navajo Nation. A culture is crumbling. And I thought, on the phone, who's the evangelist? I thought I was the evangelist speaking to, then I found out the evangelist was preaching the message to me, and he, no telling how many times, and how many churches, and how many white people he then gave that prophecy to, and said the same thing, expecting the same result. Nothing. That's what they're getting so far. Without struggling, wondering his heart, thinking he's confused about his text. No, he's grounded in the Word. Third generation Navajo Christians, they're there. The guy that's been there 50 years, guess what? He's still a white man. I told him always, I said, I could stay here 20 years. I would never be a Navajo. I said to this man, Junior, tell me your parent, your father was a pastor, your mom was a prayer warrior, and you have the chance to pick up that mantle and to take it forward. He's bitter. He's angry about what God has done. He's still angry with God. I felt like, almost like Job, he had reason to be angry unto death. He showed up the first night and we were all prepared. And as a proper Baptist minister, I had already lined up a couple of ordained deacons that knew what to do and how to do the Lord's Supper. They had 3 people show up. Pastor opted out and said, won't we do it tomorrow? And tomorrow I didn't have anybody lined up to do the appropriate, the Lord's Supper, just the way Little Baptist Church is supposed to do this. Maybe we won't get off the Navajo Nation, and then both my sisters are up here telling you all about it. So I got to be honest, the pastor was a lady too, so there. I'm talking to Junior, and he's saying, I said, Junior, the struggle you're talking about is just like the apostle had. The thing I know to do is right, I find myself not doing it. And the thing I know to do is wrong, I find myself doing that thing. And what he's got the same struggle as a Christian that's rebellious, that's still bitter about what's happened to his parents and our untimely death and taking them off the mission. I said, Junior, your salvation is secure if you're telling me that you made this decision to follow Christ. Because he had laughed and asked, how many times do I need to be baptized before I'm saved? Laughing, waiting to see what the white man's going to say to that. I said, Junior, that's once and done. You took care of that in the beginning, probably under the tutelage of your father. I said, but I'm not concerned about you. You might be missing out on fellowship, the sweet fellowship of the Spirit. You may be missing that. I said, but I'm looking at these young men come along, looking at you for an example. What does a Navajo man, what does a Navajo man of God look like? View him. What about the younger group that's younger than them, that are still counting marbles for toys? What about those kids? Who's going to teach those kids? If you don't teach this next generation, nobody's going to be there to teach the next generation. So not only will the Navajo way of life die, but the Christianity that your father carried is going to die too. Elson, warrior, stoic, serious. As this whole people was proud. I was struggling for anything from all my missionary journeys. What can I come up with that's going to make this man understand that this Navajo way? I said, what if my Jesus comes to you in a dream and tells you, this man from Gulfport, Mississippi is telling you the truth. You need to follow me. Now, surely, with that kind of a mystical, spiritual kind of a, surely that would get his attention. It works in Africa. If he comes to me in a dream, that will do it. He said, the next morning, I get up and I go pay the medicine man for a ceremony. So he'll undo that dream. Pure Navajo. There will never be nothing but Navajo. Dancing to the moon. Dancing to the earth. To the winds. Chanting for rain. As we were talking, he felt compelled to say this thing. He said, the last shoe game, that's another story. Y'all need to, that's funny. I really need to hear that. But I know I gotta cut this short. He was saying to me, there is a word has been spoken. Someone will come, take away our Navajo way. And he said, almost, like he knew something I didn't know. I said, but I won't tell you his name. Was his name Jack, the name I call myself in my chapter, motorcycle club? Or was his name Mackenzie? Or was his name David? Or was it Mark? Or was it Cameron? Logan? Who's coming to take away that Navajo way and give them the real light? How many times the real evangelists of the Navajo Nation, pure Navajo, preach that same message about that faith of a mustard seed that nobody's got yet? About that sprig being planted on a mountain. Such a wonderful story until you start digging down into the word study and you see it's a sad state. In Ezekiel, when you see it's not just about a mustard seed growing up into a plant and bird nesting in it and being a great plant. It's a lot more serious than that. As is the kingdom of God. As is our faith of a mustard seed that so many times we are without. That's all I had to say, but they had asked for this other end of the story because I have opportunity to minister to people that are downtrodden just in a daily kind of a way. My wife thinks I'm a magnet for anybody that's mentally deranged or homeless or, So of course Logan, when he sees this guy cornering his mom, it's like, Dave is the answer to this thing, right? I know he's the answer. So Logan says, Mr. David, there's a guy on the other side of the van, talk to him, Mom, he needs to talk to you. Thinking, that's pretty quick, succinct, to the point, good work, Logan. I walk around the van and sure enough, this guy needs to talk to me. Out of all the people here, he needed to talk to me. He's trying to sell these sand dollars, get money to make his trip wherever he's going. And it really was a trip. So I looked straight into his heart and recognized him to be what he really is and decided, I'm going to finish eating my sandwich and I can't help you. He turns and as he's walking away, he says, you're probably Christian too. I understood where his heart was. That was okay to let him walk away. Some others understood where his heart was. It was okay to let him walk away. Just eating my sandwich, I'm okay, but not the rest of the crowd. They done heard what he said. How's this guy never been to Navajo? Never been to Navajo, so I guess I hear you, Lord. I know what I got to do. Okay, so somebody spots him. He's right over there. He's panhandling that band of church people right over there. That other group. They're not helpful either. They got their church right on the side of their bands. They're busted right away too. Christians, bunch of Christians. I want to help him. He's getting in the car right now. Okay, that's my cue. Now, where's everybody else? They're eating their sandwich, watching me. What's he gonna do now? So I walk over to his. They're swapping drivers, and I'm trying to talk to him. And I said, I just didn't want you hating on Christians just because I didn't help you. Just pull your car right over to this tank, and I'll fill it up with, or I'll put some fuel in it. So I told him. Boy, he's mad. He's just angry. The guy sitting in the seat with him, dude's gonna give you gas. You ought to just submit. We're gonna get some gas here. Okay, whatever. I'm just like, he see me just throwing my hands. I'm ready to walk away because I'm content. The dude is up to no good, and I don't want to help him continue that habit, whatever it was. Okay. So the guy sitting next to him finally convinced him. He said, I'm a Christian. I said, great, praise the Lord. Just get right with the law, get right with the Lord. It's a good thing for y'all to do. Because you don't know how many people would try to go inside and have the police come get us and run. I said, I'm just telling you, I know what's going on. I don't know the state's laws here, but I'm just telling you what y'all are doing is probably on the borderline, rough. Okay. So he backs his car up there, puts it in the gas, and I'm pumping gas, and he pops the trunk. So I can't see his tag, but he pops the trunk and he showed me his best $10, right? Best ones. I don't need $10. I'm on a mission, not Florida, but somewhere else. So, I picked some of the, really, they're nice looking $10. They brought them home. They didn't break. And I'm pumping his gas, and trunk's open. The guy in the back seat, still smoking his joint, dumping it ash in a Coke bottle. And I thought, Lord, I heard you the first time, but I needed to go through this motion, not for me, but some of the folks didn't know what was going on with it. And until I tell the story, they're not going to understand it. Sometimes it's okay to listen to that still small voice that says, you can't help them. You let them go. That's all I got to say about that.
Thank y'all very much for sharing for your trip. If you're interested in Navajo, you got I know 2 ladies here that go just about every trip. They can tell you about it. But just be praying for them. And we pray for all our mission efforts. As we just want to build relationships with people, so we do have an opportunity to share the gospel with them. So when you pray with them, our dear gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for all that you do. Lord, we thank you for the testimonies of things that our people saw happen these last few weeks, Lord, while they were in the Navajo reservation. Lord, I just pray, Lord God, the seeds that were planted, Lord, they'll be watered, and Lord God, that you will bring about the harvest. Lord God, as our groups continue to go and build relationships, Lord God, and Lord, just to see you work, Lord, not to say, look what we've done, Lord God, but to really say, look what you have done. And so, Lord God, we just pray, again, for you to work, and Lord God, for us to be faithful hands and feet. And we pray for these things in your Son, Jesus Christ's name.